Support for the Dice Tower comes from listeners like you, and from The Op, also known as USAopoly, and from GameNerds.com. Thanks for your support. The Dice Tower, episode 702.
The best of 2006.
Welcome to the Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them. On today's show, Suzanne joins Tom and me to answer some questions from the mailbag. Geoff enters the world of NFTs, and we set the Wayback Machine to 15 years with our top 10 games from 2006. I'm Eric Summerer, and joining me now, the Doc Hudson and Sally Carrera to my Toe Mater, Tom Vassell and Suzanne Sheldon.
You know, I noticed that Eric always gives himself the fun character.
I am the fun character.
Hey, now, I'm just surprised you're Doc and not Lightning. I think that's a statement. I think Eric's making a statement there, Tom.
What kind of statement?
I think he's saying I'm old.
Maybe.
Well, no. This is. I was just talking about this the other day. That when I was in college, I was in a psychology class, which, by the way, I'm still a little bitter about. They put us in groups, and they said, you crash an airplane, here's all the things you have, what do you do? And we had a gun with one bullet. And I said, I'm going to take the gun, and now I'm going to make all the rest of the decisions. And apparently that was not teamwork. But anyway, so the psychology professor, and I don't remember for the life of me exactly what it was, but he did one of those, dividing everyone up into different groups, like the extrovert, introvert, but there was like monkey, beaver, lion, etc. I don't remember some grouping. And he went over to different types, and then he said, "Which type do you think you were?" And well over half the class thought they were the monkey, because that was the fun-loving, life of the party type thing.
Sure.
But that's clearly not true. But we always want to think that we're the best. Or the fun person to be around. Anyway,
this is
Eric,
why
I just want you to
the
be
intros.
Introspective. So,
I mean, if you want to write the intros, you can be Toe Mater.
I write the rest of the document.
Also, no comment whatsoever that when we did the 2011 list, I also had a Cars reference, because it was exactly 5 years between Cars and Cars 2.
Wow.
How on earth would I remember that?
It was only like 6 episodes ago.
I mean, to be fair, Eric, does time have any meaning anymore?
No,
really.
Not really.
Do you know that 2 Pixar movies were nominated for Best Animated Picture this year?
Best Animated Picture? Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. I noticed that because they were the only 2 movies on the entire list of Oscar nominations that
you'd
watched.
Seen. Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat.
All right, folks, we are here to talk about board games, and welcome Suzanne to episode 702.
I love being here. I thank you so much for having me. And I'm kind of unsure how to feel about the fact that I think naming me Sally Carrera is probably extremely accurate.
I didn't know she had a last name. I mean, I don't think it's ever mentioned in the movie.
You go deep. You go deep for your show names. I appreciate your dedication.
Research. That's what it's called.
Folks, I have good news and bad news when it comes to conventions.
Oh, okay.
The good news is conventions are happening supposedly at the end of this year.
All at the same time.
Right. If you want to go to them, it's called a marathon.
Oh, my goodness.
So Gen Con got postponed to September. They're now literally 2 weeks before Origins.
And Origins is like 2 weeks before Essen.
Yeah, so I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say Essen's not happening.
Ah.
Ooh.
Or I'm going to say if Essen happens, it's going to be a Europe-only Essen. That would be my guess.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, no.
I think Origins is going to end up feeling like a local con, and I think Gen Con's going to feel like Origins. And this is assuming that they're all happening. But we'll see. The tough thing is for the exhibitors. They have to decide to pick and choose which to go to, because 2 weeks after Essen, or a few weeks after Essen, is PAX, So, but you know what? At least when they announced this, nobody said, yeah, right. Well, I shouldn't say nobody said that, but fewer people said it. So maybe there will be conventions in 2021.
Maybe. Fingers crossed.
This week has been a week of announcements. I don't talk about the news a whole lot here in the Dice Tower, but oh my word, so much has happened. So many companies have announced various games, from Lucky Duck starting a new kids line, to announcing a whole pile of new games, to Asmodee buying Plan B Games. That still blows my mind that Sophie managed to sell a company to Asmodee, keep part of it back, build that into another company, and then sell it to Asmodee again.
Sounds like she's playing a board game.
It's crazy. It's impressive. You cannot but admire the business nature of that.
Yeah.
And I really think that whoever is buying stuff at Asmodee just says, what's the highest selling game of the year? Azul? Buy the company.
Yeah, sure. Why not? That's a plan.
Well, with the popularity of Unmatched, maybe Restoration Games is next. Unmatched has announced 100 million expansions, or at least several. Man, there's just so many game announcements. But I guess this is good, right? There's a lot of games coming out, and we're starting to see spots where people can play them with other people in person eventually.
Fingers crossed.
I wonder how much of this is some of the backed up releases or announcements kind of bursting through now after a period of being a little tumultuous earlier in the year, or even like kind of through the fall and winter of last year. Do you think any of that is impacting why it feels like there's a glut right now?
Like the lights at the end of the tunnel, and now all of a sudden, okay, we have a clear path to a new release schedule. Let's do it.
Well, March is usually when all the new games are announced. So, I mean
oh,
right now,
March.
the
That's
Gamma Trade Show, is, it's online right now.
That's true,
But that's when this stuff is announced. And so I can see that being, I mean, it's par for the course, I suppose. I'm just saying that some of the stuff is, I don't know. The industry is not slowed down that I can see. Kickstarter is definitely going well. And there is consistently a project that is over $1 million on Kickstarter for board games. There is, the Kickstarter seem to be doing really well. Wizard of the Coast just announced that their profits were up like 60% last year. Board gaming is doing okay. Well, at least parts of board gaming are doing okay. I know stores are hurting. I know distributors are not doing well. But, gaming itself is doing incredibly well. Alrighty. Well, speaking of that, folks, if you backed the Dice Tower Kickstarter, I don't know, actually, that was not a segue at all. But anyhow, if you backed it, the Pledge Manager, we're going to be using GameFound this year for our Pledge Manager, and that will be, well, that should be announced. That should be sent out soon, if not already. Really close. And if you want to back to Kickstarter and you missed our Kickstarter, you can still do that. Just go to dicetowerkickstarter.com. Also, the Dice Tower is now sponsored by Game Nerds. So we're working with them, and if you watch our YouTube channel, you can have a chance to win gift certificates to there. And also, you should check them out because they have a daily deal of the day in case you want to buy a board game every day.
Wow.
You probably shouldn't. I'm not that sold out here, but they do have some good deals. And the Jack Vassal Memorial Fund auction is currently running. You can get all kinds of, really amazing stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And all the money goes to the Jack Vassal Memorial Fund, which is to help people in their time of need. Go check it out. There is hundreds of entries. You can put up your own things for auction. You can bid on other people's, or you can just go look at it. Because some of the bids, I definitely think they're in the stratosphere. So it's kind of neat to watch them, I suppose.
Sure.
I just love seeing some of the interesting and unique things that people donate to the auction. Every year, there's something that is shockingly beautiful or amazingly emotional. People have just donated phenomenal things to the auction every year, and I always like to scan and look for those little treasures.
Oh, yeah. Lots of unique items.
I don't even know what to put in the box that I do. Every year I do a box of games, and I put in all kinds of cool stuff. But at this point in time, I think I need to put in bars of gold, where it's not worth the amount people are bidding on it. Alrighty, so I think that's all the different announcements. Let's jump into some games that are played. Suze, what have you been playing lately?
I've been playing a ton of games, and today I'm going to talk about a type of game that you may not have heard of. It's called a roll and write game. Now, this is a genre of game in which you roll dice, but then you have a sheet of paper that's like unique to you, and you use a pencil or pen or a writing implement, and you mark something on that sheet. And that's how, kind of like Yahtzee, but there's a wide variety. Have you heard of these?
Once or twice.
Okay. Well, I really enjoy
Sorry, I
them.
had turned off my headphones. What are we talking about?
And we're talking about Three Sisters. Three Sisters is a roll and write game from the Ridback team, Ben Pinchback and Matt Riddle, who have done Fleet and Fleet Dice. And this one is from their own publishing house. I think it's called Motor City Gameworks. And it's about gardening or farming. And I think that the Three Sisters refers to a traditional gardening method of rotating crops and things like that that originated with the native people of this land and, was passed forward and shared. And what you're going to do is roll dice and mark on a sheet. I know that's shocking. I really like this one. It's dice drafting. So you've got a little action board with different things that indicate what area of your sheet you're going to mark on. You roll the dice, you allocate them by value, and then you're going to draft them. And you may be marking off pumpkins, or you may be marking off different fruit trees, or work in the honeybee section, things like that. But really, this is a game of combos. And it's something that Fleet Dice does very, very well. And they brought a lot of that soul forward to Three Sisters, where what you're really trying to do is make everything work together. If I mark here, I'm going to get 3 points. But if I mark here, I'm setting myself up for 8 points in 2 turns. And you're trying to collect these Star Gardener points that unlock a free action. And then you want to mark down in your perennials so that you can increase the score that you're going to get for every apple and that kind of thing. And I'm just going to put it out there. There is a section in this game for a pie safe that you can also score and mark. So, the game is good, right?
And made specifically for you, yes.
Hey, I don't know if it was specifically for me, but, it sure feels like it. This is a great roll and write game if you like the kind of roll and write games where you're really trying to build a little engine and build those combos so that you're rattling back and forth between the different scoring areas and you're scanning the sheet and looking to optimize and you're trying to predict what actions you might be able to take, that kind of thing. It works really, really well. It's got beautiful kind of garden-y themed art, and I really enjoy it. I think it's another solid one. The Ridback team knows what's going on with roll and write games. That's Three Sisters.
Cool.
I was going to say I'm very interested.
Oh, cool.
Mission accomplished. It's because of the pie, isn't it?
Sure it is. First for me is some new hotness from Stronghold Games. They were kind enough to send along they called it a retail sample of Terraforming Mars, the Ares Expedition. This is the Terraforming Mars card game that just finished a successful campaign on Kickstarter. I was looking for the release date on this, but if I couldn't find it, I'm not sure. I think it's later this year at some point that it should be coming out. Maybe even Gen Con-ish time frame. I think that's when it's supposed to be on its way.
That's not very helpful anymore with them changing the dates
Who
of
knows?
Gen Con, but
Maybe old school Gen Con dates is what they were aiming for. Anyway, it can't be that far away because this is the production version of the game that I got to look at. This is the card game version of Terraforming Mars. Much like the Big Brother, you are going to be terraforming Mars, trying to flip all of the ocean tiles, raise the temperature of the planet, raise the oxygen level of the planet. And once all of that is done, the game is over. And you will earn points for participating in this whole process. You do this by building a tableau of cards, much like the Big Brother. You've got the green cards that earn you resources like heat and plants and discounts on other things. There are blue cards that offer actions that you can trigger to turn one resource into another or cause things to happen on the main board. And there's also the red cards that are big events that are expensive, but also sort of catastrophic changes to the board and give you big effects as a one-time thing. The way that you play these cards now is a sort of cross between Terraforming Mars and games like Race for the Galaxy, where you will, on your turn, select a phase. One of those phases is playing green cards. One of those phases is playing red or blue cards. One of them is triggering actions on cards you've played out already. One is earning income. The production is actually a phase that needs to be chosen in this game, and the other is drawing cards. 5 possibilities. Each player is going to choose one. If you choose a phase, you get some sort of bonus, like a discount or an extra card or something like that, back. But you're still going to get to perform all of the phases that were selected in a particular round. And so you're playing cards out and you're affecting the landscape. The card game version, Ares Expedition, you don't have a board position. The Big Brother, you're placing down sort of buildings and claiming them, and you sort of own more of the board. It's much more abstract here. You're flipping some tiles and getting bonuses, but you're not claiming sections of the board. You're just sort of progressing the tracks along the way. As far as, I've only played this in the solo mode, which is kind of a cool concept. The goal is to terraform Mars before 25 turns are up. So you've got your selection of actions, and you're building your own tableau, but then there's a dummy deck that flips over.
Dummy decks.
A dummy deck. Well, it's not bad. I kind of like the way this works. So you run through the dummy deck, so 5 actions. They will also be choosing an action each round. You don't know what it is until you get to the 5th action, then you know exactly what it's going to be. And then it gets reshuffled. And this happens 4 times. And then on the 5th one, you get to actually choose the order of the dummy deck, so that you can sort of get that last push to terraform Mars, because your goal is to have terraformed it completely. All those ocean tiles flipped, all of the oxygen up, all of the temperature up. And if you fail, you failed the mission, but if you manage to get everything complete, you've completed the job. And because you start with a different corporation each time, it's kind of a cool challenge to say, oh, what are my strengths this time? I have to compensate for that, and how do I make it work? In this go-through of the solo game. So I kind of like the solo game quite a bit. Production-wise, there are some significant improvements from the base game. Art is... Yes. Art is significantly better and more ingrained. It feels less clip-arty. It just feels like it works better. I think linen finish on more components. I think the rulebook is linen finished, which is interesting. There's also trays for the components. There's a little organizer for filing the cards. Although it's a little weird, there's tabs for this organizer, and they fold down in order to fit everything in the box. So you sort of have to bend the tabs over to make it fit.
There's a lot of games that do that nowadays.
Okay, I guess this is the first time I've seen that happening. My only complaint component-wise is that these double layer boards they've got little divots in them so you can track your resources and production and stuff, and so stuff doesn't slide around, but it's warped just a little bit, and that could be because this copy left the warehouse faster than other copies do. Usually they have to stick around for a while to get acclimated, and that's how you prevent board warping. And I think this copy may have just gotten to me faster than it was supposed to. So I'm not necessarily putting a lot of stock into that as far as the final version. But I had a blast, and I think Tom has said before that he may end up playing this more than he plays the base game. And I agree.
No, that's a guarantee. That's a guarantee that I'll play it more than a base game. It's literally, they're not going to advertise it this way, but it's half Terraforming Mars, half Race for the Galaxy.
Yeah.
I like that combo. It does. I keep going back and I'm thinking, what does Race for the Galaxy do that this game doesn't? It has a little bit of board play where you put cities down next to plants. That's it. Everything else is pretty much replicated in a faster, simpler way. Maybe if I want to play with all those cool expansions, I'll play the base, Terraforming Mars. But other than that, I'll pick the card game almost every time.
Yeah, I mean, the full game is a much more sprawling experience, especially if you're playing with all those expansions. But yeah, this seems a little more distilled. I saw someone say that you get the combos running faster in this game. It doesn't take as much ramp up to get where you're having fun, I guess. I do find it an interesting choice that production is now a choice. You know, someone has to trigger production in order for you to earn income on all your cards. And so somebody has to make that decision to take their action as income, whereas in the full game, you get income every turn. And you can sort of plan on that. Here you have to make it a choice to trigger production. I think that's cool.
Sure, but it happens often enough that it's not a problem.
Yeah. I really like it. I like it a lot. Terraforming Mars, Ares Expedition, upcoming from Stronghold Games.
Oh my gosh, this sounds so fun. I am seething with envy that both of you have played this game, and I haven't even gotten a whiff of it.
Yeah, but I only got to see it. Eric owns
so cool.
It's pretty.
Eric is keeping his copy.
I am.
Eric
This Bonacore took it away with him?
He offered to let me keep it, and I said, I'm not taking charity from you. So, all right, let's talk about a game called For Science, with an exclamation point at the end of it.
Science!
This is actually designed by the same designer, Eric Rouse, who designed Spirit Island. And before I talk about this game, folks, I played this game in prototype form, and I very rarely do so. But the main reason I played this in prototype form was because it was about 6 years ago.
Whoa.
So I want to be clear on that, because this game is about curing viruses. This is not a cash-in on today's thing going on. This was out a long time ago, or it was designed a long time ago. This is a 15-minute cooperative game. It comes in a big box. When you open a box, you're going to see a bunch of blocks that look like a kid's toy set.
Okay.
And in this game, you're a bunch of scientists trying to discover cures for various viruses. And the way you'll do that is you're playing cards. You have a one-card hand, and you're drawing cards and trying to put cards on top of viruses, and they show you how you're going to build a virus. A virus might say it needs at least 2 yellow blocks and 3 cards. So you put these cards together. They have different lines connecting different blocks. Okay, we got it. We got 3 cards, and there's 2 yellow blocks. We're good. But now, all those blocks on the cards that we put together, we actually have to build that. And we have to build it so that all the blocks with lines between each other touch, and any blocks without lines between them must not touch. And also, this thing that we build mustn't fall over. So it's dexterity-ish, but in a sense that you're building the cards so that you can build these blocks. And once you do that, once you build it, hooray, you've discovered that. You get rid of your block formation, you get rid of the cards, and then you get some reward tiles. And these reward tiles you're putting together like almost Carcassonne, because you're forming little lines of different, I don't know, viruses or whatever, and you get points. And when you get to a certain number of points, you win the game. And the game is 15 minutes, by the way. It's a 15-minute timed game, so you're hurrying as fast as you can. My only complaint about the game is, since it's a 15-minute game, it seems like an awfully big, giant game to last 15 minutes.
Uh-huh.
However, Escape, back in the day, was a 10-minute game, and that was also a pretty decent-sized game for being only 10 minutes. This has a similar feel to it. I really like it. You have different mixtures of scientists with special abilities. Like one scientist has a 2-card hand. Hooray! And you can make things harder by having the viruses have mutations. It's not really concentrating on viruses destroying the world type thing. It's more about just finding cures for viruses by putting blocks together in this. It's kind of a logic mix deduction style game. And I think it's clever enough to be pretty fun. I like doing it. I like sometimes you get these cards and you're like, well, can anybody build this? I don't think it's possible, because these 3 blocks have to be touching, and the only way to do that is to lean this one. The blocks are different sizes and shapes, of course. And I find that to be kind of just a fascinating, interesting way to play. And if you lose, well, okay, you lost 15 minutes out of your life. So Gray Fox Games has had this one that works for a while. And I know one of the reasons it was slow was because they were trying to find an economical way to basically sell a big, giant box of blocks.
Right.
But I like it. I mean, it's also a good theme, right? I mean, you're trying to cure viruses and things.
Yeah.
You're working together to do so. And I think it might be a little... I think some people may not like it because it has a weird complexity. Like, to explain the game, I almost have to show you how it works.
Okay.
And then once I do that, you'll go, oh, okay, that's what this needs to be done. So when I played it with my kids, I said, we just practiced for a while. I said, okay, so if we have these cards, let's build this virus.
Right.
All right, that works. That counts. That's good. That doesn't work. And you go back and forth. Okay, are we ready? Now let's play a real game. Oh, we just lost? Okay, now we're going to really play the real game. That's kind of how it works. And some people may not have the patience for that. But I think if you do, this is a very unique cooperative game. And also I like the name. For science!
Are the blocks wooden or made of something else?
No, they're wooden blocks. I mean, they literally look like the blocks you would get. Like one of them is rectangle, one's a square, one's that curved block, which no one as a kid understood why that block existed. Where it's flat on one side, but the other side's curved. One is that bridge-looking block with the, has like a curved underneath.
Right.
I don't know. Hasn't everyone in their life owned a set of those blocks?
Sure. It's literally a box of blocks.
Yeah. But then again, the viruses that are harder to build will have more of those rounded pieces in them. So there's a bit of that in it. If it's all squares, it's a lot easier to build.
Yeah.
For science.
For science.
Science!
Thank you. I was waiting for that, Eric. Next up for me, I feel like I've talked about this game on the podcast, but I've searched and I can't find record of it, so I'm going for it.
Sure.
Cascadia. Cascadia is a beautiful game from Flat Out Games, which is the same group that published Calico and designed Point Salad. And this is designed by Randy Flynn, and it's essentially it's like two tile laying games happening together at the same time, overlapping each other. You've got a bunch of hexagon tiles with different landscape types on them, and then you've got a bunch of round animal tiles. And you're going to be drafting these in pairs. As you lay it out, you're going to lay out some hex tiles, and then next to each hex tile, there's going to be a circular animal tile. And on your turn, you get to take one of those pairs. You take the hex with the circle associated with it, and then you add it to your own personal tableau. So you're arranging the landscapes, trying to maybe match sides or maybe not, depending on the scenario. And then you've got this animal that you get to place, and you can place the animal on the tile you just drafted or on any other open tile as well. You're going to keep on laying landscapes and placing the animals until the stacks are drained, and then you're going to score. And the way the scoring works is you've got landscape types, and so you're going to be scoring the number of tiles in each landscape type and bonuses for whoever had the biggest section. And then you've got the animals, and each animal is going to score differently. So maybe bears, you're going to score, hey, for every pair of bears, you're going to get a certain number of points. And maybe foxes, okay, foxes like to be surrounded by different animals. So you're going to get extra points the more different animals you have around them. And salmon like to work in runs. So you're going to get a lot of points if you can get a ton of salmon in a big long row kind of thing. And then whoever has the most points wins. Cascadia is just so good. It's so good. I love the tile laying of the hexes and the landscapes, and you have a lot of flexibility. You can place these tiles wherever you want. There's no rules like, oh, you have to share a forest side and a forest side or anything. No, it's free form. So you really get to plot out your landscape the way you want to. I love the way that it works in conjunction with the animals. There's some bonuses that I haven't talked about, and there's some limitations about where the animals that can go, so you're planning around that as well. And it's so easy. It just plays so smoothly, and it's such a simple game. But man, when you start to look at the way the scoring works and how these animals and the tiles play together and how the scoring cards impact the decisions you want to make, because each game you're only going to play with one salmon scoring, but there are multiple options for that card. So you've got some variability built into the game there as well. It just works so well. I love it. And it's beautiful. I think my biggest complaint about Cascadia is the end game scoring can be a little fiddly because you're scoring a lot of things. It has score sheets and it walks you through very well. And I have found that it's best to really follow the score sheet. Just follow it step by step so that you don't lose track or things like that. But honestly, it's a small price to pay for such a fun game experience. Cascadia, Tile Lane, love it. Huge hit. I mean, Flat Out Games, they are on such a roll. I can't even with them. They're great.
Let me ask this. This is a weird thing to me. Cascadia on Board Game Geek is a 2021 game. From every account, it looks like the Kickstarter is going to be delivered in August of this year.
Yes.
You have an early copy probably. But it is ranked 4008. There are 219 ratings and 223 comments. How is that possible if the game's not out yet?
There must be an earlier version.
There's a digital edition as well. So you can play Cascadia on oh shoot.
That sounds like that was a setup for her to say that it was not. Well, but that's the best part.
No, I forget. I'm so sorry. I forget if it was on Tabletop Simulator or on Tabletopia. It's on one of those. But there is a digital edition that you can play and explore the game that way. So that's probably where those ratings are coming from, I'm betting.
Got it. Okay.
Thanks for the meatball over the plate there.
Thanks for the setup. Hey, Future Eric here. I can understand Suzanne's confusion after doing some research during the editing period. It would appear that Cascadia has a official Tabletopia app or module, an unofficial Tabletop Simulator module, as well as a solo app, like a web app, that was published on the Kickstarter page. So that would explain why so many people have played an early version of the game, as well as, I think, some of Suzanne's confusion. Anyway, head to the Board Game Geek page if you'd like to look at the different options for playing the game digitally. Cascadia. So back to past Suzanne, Eric, and Tom. All right, second for me is a game called Lovelace and Babbage. This is a real-time puzzle game, very math-based, and as you can tell from the title, it's based on Ada Lovelace and Charles Babbage. It's set in the early days of computing and uses a lot of those personages. It's designed by Scott Almes, a designer whom I really enjoy many of his designs. He's famous for the Tiny Epic series, but he branches out on occasion for stuff like this. Lovelace and Babbage is the goal of the game is for you to reach numerical targets represented by cards that are brought out at the beginning of a round, and also some personal targets that you have from your deck by using operators, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing numbers, sort of manipulating two digits in order to reach certain targets. And each round you only have, I think, 5 registers, 5 operations that you can perform to reach as many of these targets as possible. You say, ready, set, go. Everybody starts in the round 1 with 55. And you have, I think, 6, 8, I think it depends on the number of players. A bunch of numbers, characters that are out on the board that you can hit, as well as your own personal targets. You say go, and you start writing down. There's a grid that lists the operations that you can use. So if I write down B2 plus, I'm looking at the grid and I'm saying I'm adding 20 to my number. And then I'd hit A1 minus, and I'm subtracting 1 from my number. And when you're all done, you start performing those operations. Oh, sorry, when one person is done, they grab the timer. Yes, that's how this works. And they flip the timer, and then everybody else has a minute or so to finish up their work. And then that's also the turn order for resolving all of this stuff. Because as you resolve them and hit these targets, if you're the first one to reach a particular number, you will get your choice of 2 symbols to mark off on your sheet. And it's sort of an area majority thing. If you're second to hit that target, you get the other remaining symbol that was on that card. And if you're third, you just get a point as sort of a consolation prize. So getting earlier in the turn order, grabbing that timer or one of the earlier tokens is important if you want to break ties. And you perform all of these operations and hopefully don't make any mistakes. There's a whole system for fixing bugs if you do mess up. You are not supposed to total along. Like in my mind, as I'm playing this game, I'm supposed to, if I say plus 20, I'm going to write 75 on the sheet. You're not supposed to do that. It's not terribly clear in the rules that you're not supposed to do that, but you're not supposed to follow along with your operations as you go. You're supposed to keep it in your head, so there is the possibility of making mistakes when you resolve them at the end of the round. As the rounds continue, more operations are revealed. So there was an A and a B row in the first round, but now there's a C row and a D row, and you get extra points for using those more difficult operations. The early ones are +1, +2, -10, but then it's like +31, plus or minus 31, plus or minus 56, and trying to get those to fit is going to earn you extra points, but it's a lot more difficult to do the math in your head. There are lots of games that are called mathy. Power Grid is often called mathy. And if your favorite part of Power Grid is the adding up of how much it's going to cost you to make your route connections for a round, you're going to love Lovelace and Babbage. This is not my game. This is not one that there's a reason why I have an arts-based career and not a mathematical career. My kids just couldn't get with it. And the box, for its credit, says 14 plus on it. My youngest had no chance of following along. There are some handicap rules in there where you can sort of give them extra points to start. You sort of give them a boost on the area majorities. But he just couldn't keep up. My 13-year-old was holding his own, but there was just no way to handicap enough to get the 9-year-old to be able to compete. And he just got frustrated and walked off. And this just felt too much like work for me. But if you have that specific mindset where you like doing quick arithmetic and solving this style of puzzle, this is a lovely structure for that. And using those skills to reach area majority, what do you go for, planning out your turn, where's my targets, how am I going to get there, that is kind of cool. But it just doesn't, this is not a firing on any cylinders for me. It's just not something I enjoyed. Lovelace and Babbage is for a very specific group of people, a lovely puzzle game. Just not for me.
All right, let's talk about something that sounds more fun than math.
Uh-huh.
And that's Danger Park.
All right. Is there a loop-de-loop water slide?
I think there is a loop-de-loop water slide.
Ooh,
In fact,
nailed it.
In fact, here's the names of some of the rides. The Hurley Bird, the Oily Teacups, the, let me see, the Nightmare Kids Boat Adventure,
Nice.
the fully randomized Whirl Swirl. So, in this game, you have one park, Danger Park, and you're all investors, and you all own different rides in this park, and you are basically trying to make these rides get as terrible as they can without people actually getting off them. Because once it gets too bad, well, then, there's not much you can do. There's all kinds of danger. There's gas, pests, trash, grease, mechanical, electrical, flooding, and, of course, vomit. In fact, the game comes with these little meeple dudes who run around, but some of them turn green after a while, and they're just going to be dropping vomit all over your park. And you would like those people to go visit the neighbors' rides, if possible. Now, eventually a ride gets shut down because there's just too much danger on that ride. And that ride gets shut down. But you're going to score points every turn by how many people are on your rides at any given point. So the theme of this game, immensely fun. My kids were doing it, and we were playing it, and I said, we went to some parks like this when I was a kid. Oh, no. So I showed them a little bit of the stuff from the Danger Park. I couldn't show them that. There's that really fun documentary that just came out. What's it called?
Class Action Park, it's called.
Class Action Park. But you cannot show that to children.
No.
the people who narrate it, yes, it's not even a little bit. Anyway, but so I just went and showed them the commercial for the park. And that was enough.
Yeah.
And they were very impressed. They said they would go to that park. And I don't blame them, because as a kid, so would I. But that's what this is making fun of, although it makes fun of it in a much stronger way. When the ride shuts down, you flip the card over and the artwork's hilarious. The ride's on fire, or whatever. Or there's cockroaches running all over it, whatever it might be. And so I love the theme of this game. I like the idea of the game. Unfortunately, it feels like a lot of work for a game that's lighter than it should be. So on your turn, you take a ride, you add that ride to the park. You're drafting it from some rides that are out there, but each ride comes with a card, and then that card will say, move all these people in a different way, and so you're moving people from ride to ride or doing different things. There's a little bit of take that too. And then you will roll dice for each ride that you have for each person on that ride, and they're 8-sided dice, and you need to roll lower than the number of danger symbols on the... No, you need to roll higher than the number of danger symbols on the ride, or else someone leaves. And whenever you fail or succeed, you will check the card to see if there's a special thing that will happen, which there is on every single card. And so it feels like you're doing this, and then roll this, and check this, and do that, and do that, and do that. Okay, count up your points. Okay, next person's turn. And you do that over and over again. And it's too much work, I felt, and too much bookkeeping for what's a really silly, funny theme game. Because it's, by the way, folks, I know I'm talking about, death and destruction, and there's no gore in this game, and even the vomit tokens are like just little green circles or whatever. I mean, it's not a gross looking game. It's more like silliness than anything else. And I love it. The kids thought it was hilarious. Like how many people can you? Because when like 20 people come to your ride, you're actually nervous about that because you're rolling dice for a lot more people. And the chance that ride just gets worse and worse is problematic. And so the theme is fantastic, but it just feels like it wasn't streamlined at all.
It's a lot of upkeep.
Yeah, and there's tons of dice rolling, and I like dice rolling, but after a while I'm like, I'm tired of rolling dice. And if I say that, you're probably rolling dice too many times. So it's a good first effort. This is one of the first games that this company has done, I believe. The company is Story Machine Games. They also did a game called Rosetta, The Lost Language. I guess that came out last year. Wait, did I play this game? No. All right, but that looks interesting, the Rosetta game. So, but this one is interesting, and I give them a lot of credit on the theme. I think the theme is fantastic, but it feels like it should have just been streamlined a bit more. So that's Danger Park, and maybe it's just me. Maybe you would love it if you're listening to this, and that stuff doesn't bother you. But I'll tell you what, I wanted to like this game more. It's not even a bad game. It just felt like there was a lot of upkeep, and also at the end of the game, I'm not sure anything I did mattered.
Oh.
I mean, I play take that on other people. They play take that on me, and you have things set up, and then a bad roll, and all of a sudden this cascades, and these people go here, and this breaks down, and and it's funny to watch, but I don't feel like I made the choices that made it happen. It just happened. Okay. A lot of randomness.
All right.
And those are the games we played.
Woo! So this isn't really a current events podcast, but Geoff has decided to take on one of the big issues of today and teaching us the word fungible.
3, 2, 1, go.
It's time for Game Tech with Geoff Engelstein, where we find out how games really work.
Lately, I've been thinking about the concept of value and what makes things valuable to you and to others. Now, the trigger for this has been the meteoric rise of non-fungible tokens, or NFTs. An NFT recently sold for $69 million. So, what is an NFT and what do they say about us? So the word fungible means that it can be replaced by something else equally. It is most frequently used when talking about money. For example, if I have a checking account and a savings account, I can move money between them and use them for the same purposes. The money is fungible. Now, a non-fungible token, or again, an NFT, tries to turn something ubiquitous into something unique. The NFT initially gained popularity in the art world, particularly around those who make digital art. If you post a piece of digital art, it is easy for people to copy and distribute, and that can make it difficult to get paid for your work. Now, some services would sell digital artwork, but would require the purchaser to have special display software or hardware in order to view it. This limits markets and makes it a difficult sell. Now, what an NFT does is make it so that something can still be public and anyone can view it or watch it or whatever, but there is one official owner, and I'm doing air quotes here. Now, recently, NFTs have started to move outside the art world. Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter's, his first tweet just sold for over $1 million. The NBA is selling NFTs of moments in basketball history. Again, this in no way makes it so only one person can view the tweet or the NBA highlight. It just means that one person officially owns it. Air quotes again. So, what is an NFT? It's based on blockchain technology. It's not something physical that you get. It's just a record that you have purchased something. Blockchain technology is the same technology that powers cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum. And the blockchain distributes records so that they're basically impossible to forge or change later and are always traceable. In one sense, this is great. If I, as a personal collector, buy a Picasso, that means that I hang it in my house and only a very limited number of people can view it. But with an NFT, I can buy something, but everyone else can still enjoy it. So, if you don't have physical possession of something and everyone else can still have access to it, what do you actually own? Now, that's where the question of value comes in. Economics is the study of value, and so, of course, there's been a lot of exploration of this. As you can imagine, there is a hierarchy of goods, essentials, luxury goods that still have some utility, and at the very top, purely status items, things we purchase that have zero practical utility, but might give us social status or perhaps just our own personal satisfaction at owning them. And NFTs clearly fit into this category. Spending $1 million on the rights to a tweet gives you nothing. It has no intrinsic value other than what society gives it. If you think it will hold its value, you are speculating that other people will want to pay that much down the road. Now, there are a number of games that explore this concept of value. A website called CryptoKitties allows you to breed and trade digital cats. They are actually similar to NFTs in that each CryptoKitty is unique and is owned by a single player. The value they have is based on what others are willing to pay for them. There is no underlying value. In board game form, I love the way that the Knizia game Modern Art explores and skewers this concept of value. In that game, players are auctioning off artwork from painters. The paintings have no intrinsic value, but the more paintings of an artist that are auctioned off, the more valuable that artist becomes. The relative values of the artist will change every game. They have nothing to do with any intrinsic quality of the art itself. It is purely a function of how much of the art is sold. As an aside, if you have not played Modern Art, you should. It is the quintessential auction game. Now, there's an economic term for prices of a good that are rising without any consideration of underlying value, a bubble. And in my eyes and many others, NFTs are a classic bubble. The value and price are completely unlinked, and ultimately, those holding the bag when the balloon pops will get burned. Think Beanie Babies or GameStop stock or the tulip mania of the 16th century Holland. And by the way, if you want to explore bubbles, Tulip Mania by Scott Nicholson is a terrific little game. Now, NFTs have an added burden. Cryptocurrencies use a tremendous amount of electricity. It is estimated that the power consumed by Bitcoin is half of all the power in all the data centers in the world. NFTs currently just use a small fraction of that power, but if they grow in popularity, they will make a major negative impact on the environment. So, as you may guess, I am not a fan of NFTs. While I am sympathetic to the plight of digital artists looking to earn a living, NFTs seem particularly silly and unsustainable to me. But if I haven't dissuaded you, and you'd like to purchase an NFT of this Game Tech segment, drop me a line and I'm sure we can work something out. This is Geoff Engelstein with Game Tech.
Support for the Dice Tower comes from the Op, presenting Marvel Smash Up. Get ready to smash together two of your favorite things, Smash Up and Marvel. Marvel Smash Up is available now, the first officially licensed Smash Up game. The Op and AEG have partnered to bring the world of Marvel to the shuffle-building game of total awesomeness. Mix and match different decks of heroes and villains. Choose from 8 different factions, 4 hero and 4 villain, including the Ultimates, Hydra, the Avengers, Masters of Evil, S.H.I.E.L.D., the Kree, Spider-Verse, and the Sinister Six. Find familiar Marvel characters to build out your drafting deck in this first ever licensed Smash-Up game featuring Marvel. It's designed to play with different Smash-Up expansions. What combo will you choose? Marvel Smash Up is available now at theop.games or your local game store today. Questions.
Gordon says, I just listened to you and Eric talk about the rating system on Board Game Geek again, and he had a thought. And before we go any farther with this thought, no, I'll get to it later. Anyway, Eric's thought. I'll get back to Eric's thought here, or Gordon's thought.
Yeah,
Gordon
I didn't
says,
have
if the
this
weight
thought.
system on BGG was an algorithm instead of a user rating, what data would it be determined by to make it objective instead of subjective? So just to clarify, folks, what we're talking about before I go any farther, there's a weight rating on Board Game Geek. It's one of the most useless piece of information on planet Earth. But you can go look to see how weighty people consider to be a game. Knowing in your head, of course, that these are people who play lots of heavy games, so they think everything is lighter than it is. Anyhow, he says, instead of just you putting in a rating from 1 to 5, so that even the most heavy game on Earth on Board Game Geek is ranked like a 4.3 or something, maybe use an algorithm taking into effect the minimum age, the time to play, the component count, the length of the rulebook, the cost. The current system, he says, is obviously insufficient, but how do we fix it, says Gordon. I don't think we fix it. I think you just let it alone, and I can just sit there and say that it's a useless statistic. But if someone finds it to be a useful statistic, then goes be it. But if you try to make an algorithm, no one's going to agree on it.
I think that's the problem. Currently, anybody can use whatever system they have in their head to rate games. And the idea being that if enough people rate the weight of a game, it will average out into something that is somewhat useful. But if you created some sort of algorithm, and I think that the first 4 things Gordon mentioned there could be useful in figuring this out. Age to play, time to play, the component count, the length of the rulebook, cost I don't think matters. That could translate into something that is uniform, but who decides those thresholds? Is that designed by committee? Is it designed by 2 or 3 people at Board Game Geek? I think it is better now to average out everybody's individual rating systems to come up with some sort of weight comparison the way it is right now. I'm not sure if trying to automate it and make it objective is the way to go.
I guess it works, but I just pulled up Advanced Squad Leader. 563 people gave it a 5.
Okay.
Heavy.
Sure.
65 said medium heavy. 18 said medium. 6 said medium light. And 16 people said light. A 1 out of 5. Those 16 people are liars. You know in your head it's not a 1 out of 5. Come on now.
What if they only play complex war games?
Even then, you could not literally call this a 1. Are those same people ranking Candyland? What is that, a negative 20?
Yes.
I mean, come on now. I'm going to look up Candyland, see if it got any
We
fives.
did. I swear we did when this came up before. Somebody
feel like I
rated
am repeating
Candyland a
myself.
5.
Maybe those people thought 1 was the top of the scale.
Right, because some games,
Right.
1 is a hit, right?
I'm number 1. That's the hardest.
Let me tell you something good, though, in the news, I suppose. But Board Game Geek has added a bunch of slots to each game. This is only tangentially related. Of the sculptor and the developer and a lot of other parts of games. That's really
Lots more
cool. Now,
data.
I don't know who's going to go in there and fill all that stuff out.
Oh, people will.
Unfortunately.
Publishers
will,
are
yeah.
absolutely. I know a number of publishers that saw that pop up and were like, we're going in, we're updating it. Because I think there's been a desire to acknowledge all the fabulous talent that goes into a game. There just hasn't been the separate fields. And so I know a lot of people that were excited to jump in.
Well, this is cool then. I'm going to be able to do my top 10 sculptors soon.
There were a bunch of people who were listed as co-designers on certain games that thought that actually isn't true. I was a developer, or I had a different role, but I couldn't be listed. And so the publisher threw me up there as co-designer, even though that really wasn't my role. And so now that's being corrected as well, which is kind of cool. That more discrete information is a good thing.
By the way, I'm going to say a small annoyance to me. I don't remember what companies do this, but I just saw a company the other day that had 3 names on the cover, and I just assumed they were the designers, but it was actually the designer the artist and the developer.
Yes.
Now, I mean, I should have saw Beth Sobel and assumed she was the artist, but I didn't assume that because maybe she designed the game. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they didn't have like a symbol next to each one. I'm not saying that one's more important than the other, but it just would have been easy. I don't know. I just thought
It's
that
not
was odd that
necessarily
you
the
put names
convention
there.
that we're used to seeing. Yeah.
Did you find Candyland?
Oh no, because Eric reminded me,
He
and I
stopped
didn't want to get
looking.
yelled at.
Got
I didn't
it.
want to get yelled at for repeating a thing. So I'll do shoots and ladders.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, we didn't do shoots and ladders last time.
I
So
don't
shoots
think
and
so.
ladders. 297 people gave it a 1.
Yep.
2 people gave it a 2.
Okay.
No one gave it a 3 or a 4, and 1 person gave it a 5.
So someone is just out there. Yeah, okay.
Oh boy. All right, let's move on, shall we? Ray writes in and says, "Hey, love the podcast, helps me keep sane at work. My question is, which escape room type game would you recommend for someone that's never played that type of game before? Me and my fiance play a lot of board games that range in difficulty, complexity, and I'm just not sure where to start because there seems to be so many different types of this game out there. I've seen entire displays filled with only exit titles. Exit, Unlock, what are your favorites? Also consider we will most likely be playing with just the 2 of us."
That's a good number for those escape rooms. 2 is a good 2 or 3 is usually best for these games. I really like the Think Fun line, that is Escape Room the game, I think.
Sure.
Is that it? Yeah, Escape Room the game. And going on the first 2, not the Cursed Dollhouse, but the first 2 are excellent entries. There's enough physicality to them and interesting physical puzzles as well as mental puzzles, and it's a good, entry level to these escape room games. And then there's a lot of exits the entry level exits that I highly recommend. What is it? House of Riddles.
Yes, that's
is the
exactly
one.
the one I was thinking of. House of Riddles or the Haunted Roller Coaster
There
are
you go.
so great.
Yep.
Haunted roller coaster is definitely on rails. No pun intended.
my
No, you
goodness.
intended it.
I literally didn't.
You did.
I wouldn't say it if
Deep down,
I
you
wanted to
intended
joke,
it.
I wouldn't say
Own it,
no.
Tom. She's right here.
Anyhow, I would also so Unlock, the Star Wars Unlock one, if you like Star Wars, is really a good entry point for that series, I thought. And if not, if there's a clown on the cover.
Right.
Yes.
No,
The
I'm not
no
kidding.
side.
Yeah.
If there's
The
a
no side
the no
ones.
side ones, if there's a clown, that's a good one to start with for them. For exit, you guys at the cabin, right?
Nope, we didn't
The
say Abandoned
cabin.
Cabin.
Cabin's a good one too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the lab, the
The lab was good. The secret lab.
Those are the first ones that came out, which is why I say that. But it depends what you like. If you are a person who likes pen and paper puzzles, like let's say you love Sudoku, Exit is where I point you right away. If you're more interested in story aspects, then Unlock is a better choice. And if you're looking for easy, something that's not too difficult than the ones Eric mentioned, yeah, I think. There's really good choice, but there are some that are very difficult. Do not get the ones from Board and Dice. They're not entry level.
Oh no, the
No,
I just,
no,
Just
yeah.
played that one actually. Escape Tales.
Escape Tales.
Yep.
And don't do the insane one that Eric played that no human being should play, but Eric played it anyway.
Which insane one was that?
About the serial killer.
Oh yes, yeah. No, don't, no. Very much not. That was the 39 Clues.
Yeah.
Is that right?
It's
I
not
blocked
worth
it out.
Folks, don't look it up. It's not worth it.
I blocked it out. Yeah. Hey, future Eric here. I looked it up. The game is called 50 Clues, not 39 Clues, which is based on a children's book series. Not the same thing. 50 Clues, it came in 3 installments. And yes, it was, while the puzzles were interesting, it was a very, very dark escape room style puzzle game. And it was not one that I recommended due to subject matter. So, yeah, anyway, 50 Clues. Let's see. Martin asks, today I received a package with the Dice Tower Kickstarter goodies and hanged the Balanced Gamer Challenge on my wall. I'm looking forward to scratching off the challenges and was thinking about weird gaming challenges I put for myself in the past. getting all achievements in Slay the Spire, or beating all villains with specific heroes in Marvel Champions, or ruling all the regions in PAX Premier. What was the weirdest or most fun gaming challenge you have put yourself through? I thought this would make fun discussion. I was really racking my brain on this one, and I think I have just really boring challenges I set for myself, like I want to win the game with all of the roles in Pandemic, or trying out every combination we can come up with in Pandemic as a 2-player game. But that's not as interesting as the stuff that Martin's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I've done something similar where like in Hearthstone, I'll make a deck and play against every single possibility combination with that deck to see. But that's not that interesting either. I used to try to do weird decks when I played collectible card games. I don't know. I don't really put myself under a challenge. Maybe Indulgence. I tried to shoot the moon in that game. It's almost impossible, but I try every time. But that's not really a challenge.
Yeah, my only personal challenge is my sheer determination to make my ever-growing game collection fit into my static shelving space.
Ah, yes.
It's a good challenge. It's very difficult.
That is a challenge.
On that note, folks, can anyone tell me how to get Funkoverse into any kind of semblance of... I just put all mine into a tub as I'm prepping to move the studio, and I was like, this is ridiculous. There's too much Funkoverse stuff.
You almost have to have a display cabinet that then is on wheels.
Yeah, it's a problem with any of these games, and it's not just Funkoverse. Like I said, we cannot have 2 shelves of our library eventually dedicated to Unmatched. Do I combine them? And if I do, how do I do that?
Why can't you? Yeah, they're beautiful.
I mean, the inserts are so nice. Yeah, and the covers are so nice.
Because you just talked about the space aspect a minute ago.
I had, until the Buffy set came out, I had fit everything into one box, but I don't think I can do that anymore.
Yeah, and that's the way it is with so many games. Well, we're way off topic here. All right, let's keep going. Kaylee says, you say that every year is a great year for gaming. Well, sort of. Anyway, I thought it would be interesting, they say, to put some of this in comparison. Would you rather have access to games released from 2020 through today, or games released before 2020?
Before.
Yeah, that's interesting. I thought at first this was going to be 2020 to the future, but if it's 2020 through today, that's only a year and 3 months of games.
Yes.
And then if the answer is before, they read your mind, Eric.
Yes.
Then what is your cutoff year?
Oh. Huh. See, that gets more difficult.
No, it's not. I would do 2016 and before, over 2016 through today.
That's very specific.
It is, but I think that's because... No, I'm sorry, 2017. Because I think 2016 was a fantastic year. Now, this cuts out some of my favorite games, for sure, but it leaves me with enough games. However, if you offered me every game that I own right now, or get rid of all of them, and I can only play games from now to the future, I'd pick the future because I'm that much of a sucker for unknown stuff. Eric, I bet you would go with the past in that situation.
Yes, I think. Because there's still plenty of things to play. I think we've said
40
that.
years of games.
Yeah,
you know?
There's still plenty of things to play. But I do agree. I mean, I would still want to know what comes next. If I could never play anything that was released after today, that would be sad. I don't know. So I think Kaylee's question is what would be the cutoff for going forward? Like you said, 2016. From 2016 to today, you would take over the stuff before that.
Yes, I would.
Okay.
Although these are these made up questions which never mean anything. I mean,
sure.
It's not that big of a deal, right? But 2016 would leave me with some really good games like Seventh Continent, Gloomhaven.
Yeah.
Some of those bigger games. Yeah, there'd be a lot of games before, from 2015 and before that I would miss, but,
It's
it is
hard
what it
because
is.
my favorite game is a 1980s game. So
Yeah, but no way. I love Cosmic, but there's no way I'm going all the way back to 78 for this cutoff.
yes,
Where are you at, Suze?
Oh, always the future. And I mean, I would put it in the 2015-ish zone.
yeah,
But honestly, I was thinking about this with the news that Z-Man is discontinuing their their classic Euro line
mm-hmm.
that has like Raw and Princess of Florence. In fact, they said that they had Princess of Florence ready to go, but they're just going to not do it. I think that older games have inspired so much wonderful stuff today. I'm going to pick future almost any year that you pick, because I suspect that there is a game that, even if it isn't perfect, mimicking something from the past, the essence of certain mechanisms or certain theme or whatever is going to be brought forward in some game in the future that'll scratch that itch.
Yeah.
Games are just getting really great. And not that games weren't, but games are great right now. I love them. So, yeah.
I would like to stick a pin in that and come back to that in just a few minutes.
Okay.
About how games have gotten better. But sure.
Okay. John says, I'm a teacher, and this year of COVID, the schedule is very different. We have more time without students to prepare virtual lessons and communicate with students at home. So with some of my colleagues, we've been playing some turn-based games without a lot of interaction. One person takes a turn, and then whenever the next person can play, they play their turn. We've been using Empire Builder, the crayon rail game, for this. What other games would be good for this setup or low interaction and being turn-based? So many games are quick turns where it doesn't make much sense, or so much interaction that you couldn't keep up with everything. Thanks for all your work.
And just to clarify, I asked a follow-up question to John, and he said that they leave the game set up let's say in the break room.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually a physical thing. Someone comes in, makes a move, then they leave. Someone else comes in, makes a move. That sort of thing.
Oh, cool.
I'm assuming that they're not playing these, or they aren't interested in playing these digitally, because there's tons of games you can play turn-based online.
Sure, but I think the point of it is that they're doing a little bit of physical stuff. Because if you're a teacher, you're online so much that I've heard almost all of them complain about being on the internet too much.
Right. Immediately, talking about train games, Transamerica, or even Ticket to Ride would work. But if you're already
Ticket to Ride would not work. The turns are too short, Eric. What are you going to do? Come in, I draw 2 cards.
Well,
Come back tomorrow, I draw 2 more cards.
Well, yeah.
Tigris and Euphrates.
Merchant of Venus would work.
Now, come on now. Let's talk about games that people will enjoy.
Come on.
Abstract games work, although abstract games aren't as... There's not too many that aren't 2-player. But maybe if you played Blocus or Gemblo or... what's that 3D one I like a lot? Pueblo.
But aren't those turns too quick?
They could be. But chess, a lot of people do this with chess as it is now,
Sure.
right? I've heard of this being done with chess. It happens in the movies at least, where the guy walks in, makes a move, and then leaves.
Yeah. Pueblo, I think, would work. There's enough thinking and hemming and hawing that I could see somebody showing up in the break room and picking up their piece and walking around the board. And then because you're the only one in the room taking your turn, you don't have the pressure of everybody staring at you and feeling like you're getting AP. You can be like, oh, yeah, all right, that I like it, and make your move and walk away and, tell your colleague it's their turn.
Feast for Odin.
I would be so worried about a piece going missing from that game, though.
Yes.
Fair.
Somebody clears the table because it's somebody's birthday and they need to put the cake out.
Oh.
We'll just put this over
that's
here.
Why the murder happened, officer.
Guillermo says, I've heard for a long time how game mechanics can't be copyrighted. Yet I can't remember many examples of games that are straight up mechanical copies or re-implementations of other games. without the original designer's authorization? Why isn't there an epidemic of bootleg versions of other games? What stops a company from using all the same mechanics of Scythe, for example, without using any of the art assets or any of the copyrighted text? I could call mechs robots, call the factory the ancient temple, switch up the resources, and still have mechanically the same game.
Sure. And this has been done. The most famous case of this is there's a Chinese company that straight up copied Bang.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't change anything other than a few things. Someone also copied Paul Peterson's Guillotine, made a serial killer game about it on Kickstarter. You can do it, and you will likely get away with it, except in the court of public opinion.
Yes. It isn't seen as being good, and you'll get a lot of bad press. But will it hurt you enough to make a difference?
Now, if the game itself is already somewhat public domain, so for example, Time's Up, there's 20 different versions of that.
Yeah.
There's multiple styles of that game. Liar's Dice, there's many different versions of that. Even Jenga, just people straight up copy Jenga. You can go buy. I mean,
Right.
They don't even. I don't even know how they get away with that one. I mean, because they don't even make it look different half the time.
They just don't call it Jenga. It's just called Tower Build. Lock game.
You could do it, and again, it definitely happens. In fact, I'm not going to get into specifics, but there was just a very big case of this on the internet recently with a Kickstarter, in which a company made essentially a copy of another game. They changed a few minor rules. Sure, they can do it, but a lot of people yelled about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You got to work with. I mean, if you're in this industry, you got to work with everybody. So you can tick off a lot of people, but you do something like that, you're ticking off pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why it takes some audaciousness to do it. Not to mention, even if you did it, it may be legal, but they still may take you to court anyway. And who wants to do that?
Yeah.
Even if you win in the long run, how would that be fun? But I don't know. It's still going to happen. I would imagine. There's definitely ripoffs of Catan. I know that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, there's other versions of Monopoly that aren't Monopoly. They're worse.
Be careful, because Hasbro takes less kind look at that than other companies will.
They do, but I know there are other like Opoly games out there, but they're not as good. Like they have changed the mechanisms. It's a grid, and you go around the board, but it doesn't have all the same rules and mechanisms that actually make Monopoly interesting.
Well, what Hasbro does with Monopoly is there's some things you cannot change on a Monopoly board that's official,
Yep.
which is why even on a Star Wars Monopoly, the go to jail picture looks exactly the same as it does on an ordinary Monopoly board. To me, it really pulls me out of the game. I'm like, what is this nonsense? But that's
Well, it was
just
very
because
immersive
that's
until
what it
then.
is.
Yes.
Well, yes, as Darth Maul, I am paying rent to Qui-Gon on Tatooine because he had 2 hotels there.
And then this weird police officer shows up and sends me to jail.
I'm actually surprised. Like, I mean, I think it would take a lot of work to copy Scythe wholesale anyway, or any of these other big games. I mean, it's a lot of work to change all that stuff. And then who's going to buy it? The fans of those games will say, I already have Scythe. Why would I buy your fake copy of it?
Right.
I think the fake copying only works when the game is simple enough and you'll be able to sell it to people who may not know. Like, Jenga's the example of that. If I want to buy Jenga for my kids and I go to the store and it's called Tower Blocks, the ordinary shopper's not going to go, well, that's not Jenga. They're going to go, oh, yeah, that's Jenga. You know, or whatever. It's just the same game to them. It doesn't mean anything to them. But a board gamer who plays a very complex game, if I say, oh, this is Agricola, well, then why would I want another copy of it? You know, that's...
Yeah.
Maybe that's why. What do you think, Suze?
Yeah, I think it is a lot of work. I think it'll be interesting because, you know, the laws that these are based on are so dated, and gaming has evolved so much over the last 20 years, video games and board games. I wouldn't be surprised if something comes up eventually that really challenges how these things are tightly defined. to change it, but I mean, the game exists. Like, just get Scythe. Like, why? I mean, short of being kind of an idea stealer and trying to make a quick buck, if you're just looking for the game, just buy Scythe.
Yep.
Alrighty, well, that's our questions, folks. Let's go back 15 years to a top 10.
It's a Dice Tower Top 10!
The Dice Tower's Top 10 list is brought to you by Game Nerds at GameNerdZ.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the year 2006. Now, we answered a question earlier, like, where would you draw the line? It would not be 2006.
Nope.
I stuck a game about pooping donkeys on my top 10 because...
I mean, there were a few that like definitely were going to make it. Oh yes, these are on the top 10, and then like the latter half, I know has changed. I didn't go back and look at my list from 5 years ago when it was only a 10-year-old list, but I know that back half is probably totally different. But I bet the first 3 or 4 are the same.
There's some games I would have put on, but better versions of them came out, like Heart der Grans. I really love that game, but now it's Sheriff of Nottingham. I would have put Shogun on my list, but technically it's just a redone version of Wallenstein. Yeah. But don't hold me true on that completely because I'm not giving any. Okay, that's a lie. I'm going to give Eric garbage, but I'm going to give very little garbage.
Goody. Excellent. I'm looking forward to that. Garbage, bring it on.
It's weird though. I really think we're spoiled because I don't remember thinking in 2006 that it was a bad year.
Yeah.
I mean, there a lot of good games came out, but, I really think each year gets better. The fact that people look at 2020, a year in which the coronavirus was rampant, the industry seemed to be shut down for a while. Lots of games were still published, though, and if you told me I could only play games from 2020 or nothing, I would be content. There's a lot of great games that came out in 2020. More great games came out in 2020 than came out in 2006. So...
Okay.
Fact. Don't at me. All right, let's get started here.
Here we go.
Number 10.
I'm going to kick things off with Masons. This is an abstract game with a map that all of the players are helping build. They're putting structures on the map and putting walls around the map, and you have cards that you are trying to achieve. So you are influencing the map, but all the other players are doing stuff to it as well, and you're trying to achieve points like how many buildings are close to the wall, how many are away from the wall, and trying to guide everything toward your scoring opportunities. I like it. It's puzzly and very abstract, but a good one. Masons, number 10.
My number 10 is higher up on somebody else's list, so I'm just going to polish my crystals while I wait.
My number 10 is a game I probably won't ever play again, but it's still on my list. Well, it's because it gave me such a grandiose experience at the time, and that's Warrior Knights. The best thing about Warrior Knights is it's essentially like a fantasy version of Twilight Imperium. It's a big, giant... Well, fantasy is not even the right word. Medieval, I guess. There's not a lot of magic or anything in that. It's just a big medieval thing, and you have these different kingdoms, and you're manipulating things with politics and war, and if you had the expansion, which you should, technology. You send out ships on expeditions, hoping they come back laden with goods that will give you stuff. You have to use diplomacy. A lot of really cool things in it. This version that came out in 2006 was actually a reprint of older ones, but it was superior to... the older ones were just... They're just very much a product of their time. But now, 15 years later, Warrior Knights is also a product of its time. I would like to see a reprint of it, but I doubt that's going to happen. So I'm just going to think of it fondly as my number 10.
Number 9.
Soccer Tactics World is still my favorite soccer simulation game, and I think one of my favorite sports games. That said, it hasn't hit the table very much, and I think my kids might not enjoy it so much. A lot of dice rolling, but it is a fun soccer game and a nice two-player experience, which is why it's number 9, Soccer Tactics World.
My number 9 is higher up on somebody else's list. Let's see if you can deduce what it is.
My number 9 is a game I talked about earlier, the Pooping Donkey game, Los Momphos.
Oh, boy.
In fact, it never actually came out in English. I don't know why. This is a kid's game in which you have a bunch of wooden donkeys and you move them around in a circle, and you're feeding them little discs of different colors. And at some point, you are all going to stop and say, all right, which color discs do you want from inside that donkey? And everyone's going to secretly pick. And so I'm like, well, there's a lot of blue discs in that donkey, so I'm going to pick blue. But whatever color you pick, everyone reveals at the same time. And if everyone picks blue, you all split the blues. But I picked purple because I'm pretty sure purple was the second most. So anyway, you then open the tail of the donkey and all the discs come out the rear of it. I don't know why that's as satisfying as it is. Probably for the same reason that when I lived in Korea at Lotte World, there was a donkey there that I would put 50 cents into, and it would shoot out of its butt a coin, a chocolate coin. And we thought that was amazingly fun. It wasn't even good chocolate. But I'm a child in some ways. But you know what? The game is actually still fun. It's memory, but remembering what's in each of the donkeys is hard because they're constantly moving around. But even if you can remember, it doesn't matter because then you're still trying to outguess everybody else. It's a silly, fun game for kids and adults, Los Momfos, and a symbol of 2006.
Number 8.
Number 8 for me is Arcadia. This is a game where you're putting out buildings, polyomino tiles, and then surrounding them with your little figurines, which help you do like an area majority scoring. Once you've surrounded the building, it scores, you'll earn points. There's also other scorings that you can trigger by spending your little banners. It's another cool abstract puzzle, area majority, head-to-head adventure. I've enjoyed Arcadia. Number 8.
Nice. My number 8 is higher on somebody else's list. We'll try to make that connection soon.
All right, well, I'm apparently picking games no one else picks. Gift Trap, which if you go back on our podcast years ago, you will remember we gave this out as a prize on a contest that Mr. Boddicker entered back when he was a non-board gamer or a non-publisher. Those were the glory days. Anyway, Gift Trap is a game where you show these 9 gifts. You have to pick one to give everyone else at the table, and then you pick which one you would like the most, and you get points if you gave people the one they want the most, essentially, or the second most, etc. It's fun. It's silly. It's, they have good presents, okay presents, terrible presents, but they're like all in the same category. So let's put out the fantastic presents. They came with a lot of different ideas. This would have been a huge Kickstarter, I'm sure, if it came out today. But at the time, it was a funny little game, and I still find it fun. It's a good icebreaker of a game, I think, because I'm like, I don't know much about Suze. Would she want a day at a spa, or would she want a brand new computer? I don't know which one, and so I'm guessing, and then you learn about the person when you guess incorrectly. Gift Trap.
I bought Gift Wrap based on your recommendation here on the podcast all those years ago, and it saw some playtime at family game days for sure.
Yeah, notice it's not on your top 10, but all right.
And then it left the collection, but yes.
Number 7.
Number 7 was Suzanne's number 8, and that is Factory Fun, a real-time strategy puzzle, another puzzly game where you're taking machines that translate one color and turn it into another color, and then connecting that color into another machine that has the proper input for the color you have, and earning points by making more and more complex connections as you work your way around the floor and guiding the proper, tubes into the receptacles that they need to go in. But the real-time element means you're grabbing machines, trying to get them before your opponents because they work perfectly for your layout, except then you realize after you've grabbed it that it is the mirror image of what you actually need, and then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Factory Fun, number 7.
It's a great game. It was re-implemented, Factory Funner, and I don't know if you all saw this, but apparently there's an even newer edition of Factory Funner coming out now with all new art.
Really?
Is it called Factory Funnest?
It better.
I don't know if it's
It better be.
My number 7 is not on anybody else's list, and that's Ispahan. Ispahan is a Spiel des Jahres nominee, actually. A little light game of action selection in which dice determine the strength of the actions that are available. You're going to be building out markets and connecting lines and things like that. Very simple, very light, very enjoyable. Also re-implemented as a roll and write game called Corinth from Days of Wonder, of all things, a couple of years ago. And honestly, very, very similar experiences, even though one's a roll and write and one's not. But Isfahan, it's a fun game. I really still enjoy it, especially in roll and write form.
This one just barely missed my list. I think this might have been my number 11 this time. I played a lot of this online on, I think Yukata had an implementation of Isfahan and played it a lot there.
Take It to the Limit is my number 7. This is a puzzle-style game where you place tiles down. One person draws tiles randomly. Everyone else picks the same tile, and you place it in a grid, trying to connect rows and just rows and different rows of tiles, trying to get the same number in as many different rows as you possibly can, connecting these pipes. I don't know what it is about this. It is a roll and write before roll and writes were popular, essentially. I mean, that's really what it is in a sense. It's kind of like those roll and writes where you have a number and everyone writes that number somewhere on their paper. It's that same kind of style of game. And I don't know. I just really like it. It's big. There's a lot of pieces, and it feels really good when you're done if you scored any points at all. So take it to the limit.
Number 6.
I have solved the mystery of what Suzanne's number 9 is, and I accuse Mr.
Dun,
Jack
dun, dun.
because it's my number 6.
You were making that game sound so much more interesting than it is.
Mr. Jack is a 2-player game where one player is Jack the Ripper and is trying to hide their identity because they can be one of, 8 different people moving around the board. And the other player is trying to determine who that is by asking or having the positioning of the different characters, give them information about where Jack is and isn't. They're positioning to streetlights and buildings and all sorts of stuff around the map, and the other player trying to keep that information obfuscated as much as possible. This one's still in my collection. I need to try this with the kids. Mr. Jack was my number 6.
Everything you said, Eric. Great job. I also really enjoy Mr. Jack Pocket, if you haven't played that. That's a little smaller edition, very compact and efficient.
I've played the Phantom of the Opera one, which uses similar mechanisms.
Number 6 for me, Cubalino. I am a huge fan of abstract games. Just really beautiful wood abstract games will always catch my eye. And Cubalino is one I really enjoy that uses dice. Each player has, I think, 6 dice that you line up on your side of the board. It's a little square grid board. And basically, you win when all of your dice are on the opponent's side. And the player that has the most pip value will win the game at that point. And the way you do this is you can move the dice, and depending on what they are, you can sometimes tilt them forward. So you're not rolling them, like randomly rolling them, but like you'll just tilt it forward and roll it forward a few spaces. You can also, there's a thing where you can move straight forward and then jump without changing the face of the die, etc., etc. There's some of these abstract movements. It's thinky, it's simple, and I really, really like Cubalino. In fact, I haven't played it in a long time, and just thinking about it makes me want to pull it out again. That's my number 6.
I'm surprised my number 6 is not on either of y'all's lists.
It was close.
Pillars of the Earth.
Really close.
It's on my shelf of shame. I have a copy and haven't played it yet.
One of the first games that got me to read a book, which I'm not necessarily thrilled about. It's a very long book. It's well written, but also, did I mention it was long? I didn't particularly enjoy the book. The book was a little too harsh for my tastes. But anyway, the game itself is a fine game. It's a worker placement game, but the earlier worker is pulled from the bag, the more expensive it is to place. This mechanism is a very interesting one that has never been copied. I don't know why. It's a pretty cool idea, frankly. But this has fallen for me a bit in over the years. Like this used to be my top 100. It is no longer, but I still think it's an excellent game. Pillars of the Earth.
Number 5.
My number 5 is going to show up on someone else's list, so I guess I better start walking, but I'm not going to walk far.
All right, my number 5, Traders of Osaka. This was also released as Traders of Carthage, and this is primarily a card game with a little board, and you're going to have cards with different goods on them. And basically, you're going to be drafting cards and buying them from a market, and then using those cards to get more cards and trading them in, and you're trying to move these little ships across this little board to Osaka or to Carthage, and and when Z-Man released it as Traders of Osaka, they had updated all the art, so it's a really beautiful production of a game. I really enjoy it. Great drafting, hand management, set collection kind of game that I think stands up to today's standards. Traders of Osaka, my number 5.
My number 5 is Suze's number 10, and that's Blue Moon City. Now, don't get this confused with Blue Moon, the very boring card game. Blue Moon City is a very clever game from Reiner Knizia that is about manipulating these dragons, moving around a board to build up this city and score points using different types of cards. Each card can let you do a special ability, and you get to do these really cool combos that feel awesome. They probably feel cooler than they are, but it's fun. Like if I can play this card to move the dragon here, and then I'll go here and I'll use this to build on this spot, and then I get double points or whatever. I don't know. I really like it. If you can find the original version of it, I think it's nicer than the recent reprinting from Simon. I think the Fantasy Flight version is better, but that's Blue Moon City.
Yeah, Blue Moon City, the FFG version has that tower, right?
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head what they are. I just know that I like the original version, how it looked a lot.
Yeah, no, great game. Really enjoy that kind of the way you contribute points to different buildings and things like that. And it was nice to see it on your list, Tom. It's good to know that sometimes you have good taste.
I accept that.
Number 4.
Canal Mania is my number 4. It's a route building, pick up and deliver game that's sort of the happy midpoint between, let's see, what game am I thinking of? Age of Steam and Ticket to Ride. It's got the card drafting of Ticket to Ride, but it also has the selection of powers that you'd find in Age of Steam, where you have a personage who gives you some sort of special ability. You have to trade that back in, though, when a round ends, and you trade in for another person and special ability. I like it a lot, though. It doesn't see a lot of playtime these days, but it's a strong game. Canal Mania, number 4.
Battle Lore is my number 4. Battle Lore is a fantasy implementation that kind of takes the command and colors system to have these epic fantasy battles on a board. And honestly, I was in a phase years ago where no matter what Days of Wonder put out, I was buying it, period. Days of Wonder's on the box, mine, gonna get it. Would I have bought Battle Lore if it didn't have the Days of Wonder label on it at the time? I don't know that I would have, but I am glad that I did, because Battle Lore really held up. That command and color system is just a really excellent system as you're playing cards that determines the zones that you can take your action in and the action that you can take with your different units. I think it's great. And then they came out with Battle Lore 2nd edition, so of course then I had to refresh everything I have, and they get ya. They get ya. But Battle Lore 2nd edition, my number 4. Great game.
Yeah, I didn't put this on the list because this is when the original one came out, so I didn't want to mix them up, and the second one killed the first one.
Fair enough.
Huh.
Finally, I have a crossover on my number 4 that will come up eventually. We'll get there. We'll get to it. We'll get through it soon enough.
Number 3.
With so much diverse lists for this one, it's kind of interesting that Tom and I have synced up completely on Ticket to Ride Marklin edition.
Well, not completely.
This is
and I like to ask something here. So, Eric.
Yeah.
Ticket to Ride is abbreviated T2R, but you wrote TTR, and I'm going to have to ask our listening audience which one they believe to be correct, because this is bothering me.
Does it matter?
Eric, this is the internet, somewhere it matters. I want to know what people think is the proper way to abbreviate. Is it T2R or TTR? I'm not.
And if it's TTR, is it a lowercase t in between?
That is correct. That we can add a third option. All right, sorry, go back, continue.
Oh, my goodness. Markland Edition is a map of Germany. It also uses passengers. So these special passengers that earn you points for traveling as far as possible and picking up little tokens on the cities that they go through in the course of the game. But you only get so many of them. So you have to choose the right moment to trigger the passengers and earn the points. But other players are also winding their routes through those same cities, and so they may trigger their passenger and get those tokens first. It's a neat way to earn extra points in the Ticket to Ride system, which is why I like it, and it's my number 3.
Tom, anything to add?
It's also my number 3. Yeah, it's also my number 3. I felt bad putting this on the list because it's almost more of an expansion if you think about it.
That's why I didn't put it on.
Different version.
You just put
it
on
was
Battle
different enough
Lore.
that I
Come
said
on,
yeah.
I don't think you have anything to say. All
Snap.
right. And also, hang on, because we're getting your number 2 soon.
I know.
Yes. It's my favorite version of Ticket to Ride still, except maybe Pennsylvania and London. Oh, I do like the new Western one too. It's one of my favorites. I ranked them all at one point. Ticket to Ride, Markland.
It's still my favorite.
Well, we'll just have to wait on my number 3. It was lower on somebody else's list, and it's higher on somebody else's list, so I'll just have to wait to follow the leader.
It's our only 3-way crossover.
Dun, dun, dun.
Number 2.
Back to me again. My number 2 is the Mac Gertz classic Imperial. This is a game where you are
you guys
investing
can see Eric
in
using
various
quotes there around the word classic, but they were there.
Classic because it's from 2006. You are investing in various city-states, purchasing shares basically in them, but only the person who has the largest interest in a city-state gets to operate it. And you are moving around the board and building infrastructure and attacking other players and sort of timing your payouts, taxing the citizens and then taking some of that money for yourself and using it to buy interests. And it's sort of playing the rondelle and the action sequence in the right way to push your interests up the victory track. I like it as a tricky puzzle. Imperial. Number 2.
Nice. My number 2, I think Tom's going to yell at me about, and that's okay.
No, it's a good game.
What makes you think that?
Neuroshima Hex came out in
3.0.
2006. I love Neuroshima Hex. I
3.0.
3.0. I think Neuroshima Hex is a great game where you're playing out hex tiles. They represent different units. Their edges are marked with things like nets or how far they're going to fire their rifles and take actions and bombs. And it's just a really fun hex battle game with all sorts of different factions that you can mix and match. So Neuroshima Hex, 2006 it came out. So it's on my list, my number 2.
My number 2 is Command & Colors Ancients.
Yes.
Still one of my favorite of this series, other than the fact that they put stickers on the blocks. But you know what, folks? That's not going away anytime soon. I just found out that the new Everdell has 300 stickers to put on the Everdell. So you'll know what that feels like if you back those stickers. But
wow,
you had to put stickers on each side of hundreds of blocks. But you know what? It made for a fantastic game. I still think it holds up 15 years later. Commands and Colors Ancients.
Yeah, this is the only CNC I still own. It's the one I kept because it's that good.
And finally, number 1.
Well, I know I'm safe in declaring my number 1 because it was on both Tom's and Suzanne's lists. That is Through the Ages. This is a classic of civilization building. You're working your way through different eras of cards, drafting your technology and increasing its ability to earn resources, to build more stuff, and to feed your people, and building up your military. A really nice card drafting system and an ingenious resource management system. I love the way it all works together. I have the new edition, the second edition of the game, the revised edition, but I haven't had a chance to get it to the table yet. It came in right before I moved, so it hasn't hasn't hit the table, and it's not one I'd try and play with my kids. But Through the Ages is such an amazing game of Civ building. I love it, and it's my number 1 from 2006.
Excellent choice. Excellent choice. And there is the phenomenal app implementation of Through the Ages as well that plays terrifically well. And if Through the Ages is a game that you want to explore but have trouble getting it to the table, or that maybe felt a little intimidating, the app is worth checking out for sure.
Nice tutorial on the app.
Yeah, but I was going to say, this is my number 5, by the way. I think the app may have killed the actual board game for me.
And Tom, it was your number 4.
Was it my number 4?
Yeah.
Number 4, sorry. I'm still learning to count. I think, I don't know. It's just so much, the app's so well done.
I enjoy the player, like I enjoy being at the table with other folks with Through the Ages, but yeah, the app is an excellent example of digital implementation for sure. Alrighty, my number 1 of 2006. I had no idea as I was looking through the list to figure out what my top 10 would be. I had no idea that Quirkle came out in 2006. But here it is, my number 1.
There it is.
Abstract game, starbursts and circles and squares and some different colors. Line things up. If you get one of every shape in a row, you get a Quirkle. It's fun to say Quirkle. Great for families. Great for filler. Easy to teach. It's such an excellent abstract family game that I enjoy, my kids enjoy. I'm so glad that Quirkle's on the market and that people have it to play because it's a good one.
And my number 1 was also on Eric's list at number 5, and that's On the Underground. That was actually just reprinted in 2019. Or was it 2020? Everything's boring together year-wise. But On the Underground, a game about running a couple lines or more, depending on how many players are in a game, in the London Underground or the German Underground or the upcoming, what is it, Paris and is it the United States? I forget the other two. They got some new ones coming out. And there's one passenger in this game. And you're just trying to get that passenger to use your lines to get to where they want to go. For some reason, I just really enjoyed this game. I think I like the idea of using logic to figure out how to get that passenger to where they want to go. It almost feels like a Friedman Freeze game, actually. But that's On the Underground.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, everything you just said. I like the route building and the strategy of trying to get that one passenger to do your whim.
All right, let's jump into the People's Choice. Here we go. Number 20, Command & Colors Ancients. I'm actually surprised this is so low. But go figure. Number 19, Imperial. I'm not surprised that that one's low. Number 18, Rum and Pirates. One of the first Stefan Feld games. This has not held up well. I remember playing this because at the time I was getting all these Aaliyah games. Like, this one's in the Puerto Rico line, and Princess of Florence, and now Rum and Pirates, and wait, this game has nothing to do with pirates. What is going on? It's just a point salad. Number 17, Blocus Trigon. I don't think I've ever played this one. Have y'all?
Nope.
That's the 3-player version.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're triangles, though, right?
Yeah.
16, Ispahan. 15, Ticket to Ride 1910 expansion.
Oh.
It's weird to think that that's 15 years old now.
Wow.
14, Battle Lore. 13, Factory Fun. 12, Shogun. 11, Blue Moon City. 10, Cleopatra and the Society of Architects. I almost put this on my list.
Yeah, me too.
The new version that just came out a couple months ago is, if you thought the original one was overproduced. Number 9 is the very, very boring Tuluva. I'm really surprised that this one made the list.
That's the one with the volcanoes, right? I like that one.
You made it sound really interesting. Folks, there's barely volcanoes.
It's got
in this
volcanoes.
Game. Number 8, Ticket to Ride Markland. Number 7, Hiroshima Hex 3.0.
Yeah.
Number 6, Mr. Jack. I'm just reading what's written here, Suzanne. Number 5, Pillars of the Earth. Number 4, I love this, Bananagrams.
Woo, Bananagrams!
15 years. Well, was it on your list, Eric?
No.
Have you played Bananagrams?
Is that important? Yes, I've played Bananagrams.
I have too. I
My
really
folks
struggle
like
to
it.
see why people love it so much, but all right. Number 3, Quirkle. You're doing well, Suze. Number 2, a game none of us mentioned, won the Spiel des Jahres, Turn and
Yep.
Taxis. Taking the very exciting theme of the German postal system and putting it into a game just as exciting as the theme.
It's very mechanical. I thought about it, putting it on the list, and I have played a lot of it online. But yeah, it's just not very interesting.
And number 1, Eric's number 1, Suzanne's number 3, and my number 4, Through the Ages. Clearly the best well-known game from that year. A year we shan't talk about for a long time. But still,
Not
a
for
lot of
5
good
years
stuff
or so.
came. No, we're not doing 20. Are we doing 20 years? Actually, we might be.
We have been.
Oh, why did I start this? Okay, well, my fault. So I'm really off kilter at this point.
It's your fault. It's all your fault, Tom.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, folks, we hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you, Suze, for joining us.
Thank you.
We would love to have tales of horror and more questions sent in. I'm burning through the questions, and of course, you can talk to us on our forums and on our Facebook group and all over the place, folks. We love to communicate with you. Thank you for all the very nice things that people wrote in and all the different feedback we're getting. I really appreciate it. But until next time, I'm Tom Vassell,
I'm Suzanne Sheldon.
And I'm Eric Summerer.
and you've been listening to The Dice Tower.
Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This episode, number 702, was recorded on March 18th, 2021. Mandy and Suzanne join you next week, and in 2 weeks, Tom and I are on the home stretch of the alphabet lists with our top 10 games that start with Y. Support for this podcast comes from listeners like you. Thank you for spreading the word. And speaking of support, the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund is dedicated to providing support to members of the board gaming community in their hour of need. Find out more about the fund's mission and how you can help at jackvassell.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom, Mandy, Suzanne, and Eric, with production assistance from Roy Kennedy, Mike Delisio, Chris Yee, and Rob Siri. Our theme was composed by Timothy Pinkham. That feeling you get when almost every PhD candidate writes their dissertation on the exact same topic, provided by Dominant Theses. And hosting is provided by Game Nerds, your all-in-one solution for all your nerdy needs at GameNerds.com. We love feedback. Visit the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com. Email us at tom@DiceTower.com, Suzanne@DiceTower.com, or Eric@DiceTower.com, or follow us on Facebook. And of course, you can find more from the Dice Tower Network, including Board Games Insider, Out of Game, The Broken Meeple, The Game Pit, Rolling Dice and Taking Names, The D6 Generation, Ludology, and Board Game Breakfast at DicetowerNetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. All right, publishers, listen up. The one thing that you need to be a hit with Suzanne is it's got to be a roll and write game that involves pie.
Hey,
Those two things,
you don't know me.
and you're in. That's
What
it.
if it's a roll and write game, but also you get a pie with it? That would trump it. It could be a roll and write game about the German post office service, but if you sent me a pie,
That just has a pie.
yes,
just a
send
free
a pie with your
pie
game.
inside.
I'm not guaranteeing a good review, but I'll eat the pie.
Heck yeah.